Hey, it's Dr. Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com, and today I'm going to go way back to 1996 when I picked a dental school, when I was applying to dental school, and I'm going to tell you guys the only three things that matter in picking a dental school. Don't get too into the weeds with it. I found out that actually there's a lot of pre-dental students that are on listening to my website, so I'm glad to give you my opinion, and it's going to be really cut and dry. Number one, cost of attendance, total cost of attendance, including room board, renting the supplies and equipment, or buying the supplies and equipment. What is your cost? Find that out, and how do you pay? Some schools you have to pay every 9 months, some schools you pay every year. Total cost, all 4 years. Do the math, get the realistic cost. Make sure you ask actual students, not what the university publishes. You want to be as cheap as possible. It does not matter where you go to school. I can't say this enough. It does not matter. Well, there's two other things that matter. But overall, when you're weighing things overall, and that's total, I practice what I preach. I gave up a long-term, almost got engaged relationship. I was at Creighton. I was already got my rental. I was ready to move in. It was already summer. I think it was like May or June before dental school started. And my significant other was a couple hours away at med school. We were good. We had planned this, and all of a sudden I got in last minute. It wasn't off wait list, just was last minute to UCSF, which is the number one or number two dental school in my state, and it was a fraction of the price overall. It was closer to home, which I hadn't been at for ages, and I was like, sorry. And I left. And of course that relationship didn't work out, but it all worked out in the long run because I found my now husband of almost 20 years in dental school. We were benchmates. So but yeah, go cheap. You don't want to do not buy the lies that you can easily pay off these big student loans. You will be miserable. You will be working in factories. You're going to be so unhappy. You're going to have a terrible work-life family balance for the first 10 to 20 years. I see it happening all the time. I hear about it all the time. Don't do it. Do not. Do not. Okay, number two is going to be what percentage of the students in the class actually graduate in 4 years without having to retake any courses or get kicked out. We don't want weed out kind of schools. We don't want schools where people are stressed and miserable. I had a ton of free time in dental school, and I was probably top 5 in the class. Almost had straight A's. I mean, I studied a lot and I worked a lot, especially at the operative, but I had plenty of free time. We went out a lot. We traveled a lot. I had more free time in dental school than I ever had in high school or college, if that makes sense, and I did great. So to me, it wasn't hard. Maybe my school was great. I think they kicked out one person, one person in 4 years because I don't think he spoke English. I mean, he just seemed totally clueless. He had no idea what was going on. It wasn't that hard. And then another person wanted to go to med school, so he left, so that makes sense. He just chose poorly. And then another person was stalking the other person, did something illegal, but that's their fault. So I feel like I picked well. That wasn't a thing, them failing people or kicking people out. I want to do the work to get in and do the work to stay in. Obviously, if you're purposely screwing around, not showing up to class, that's a different story. But, and then what percentage, okay, so yeah, that's the main thing. And then what percentage of the people pass the national or state boards? You got to find out where their state boards are. Are they just for that state? Are they regional boards? Are you taking them after school's over? Are you taking them while you're in school? That would be nice. That was definitely not an option for us. It was absolutely miserable. As soon as it took me 6 months to find my patient. I had a couple of friends I worked with. We went to community colleges. This is before social media, and handed out flyers for screenings and stuff like that. It took over our life for 6 months. And then the day after graduation, we were going into the state boards. And then the day after that, I moved to Connecticut it was the worst week for my residency. It was so stressful, and I passed. It wasn't a problem. I mean, thank goodness. But we definitely had a handful of people that failed, but very few that failed. It was I would say, less than 10, less than 5. I mean, in our class of 70, 80, it wasn't bad. It was less than 10% fail rate. And yeah, then they didn't get their license. They had to stick around and screen patients. But also, I mean, if you did fail, is the school going to support you to use their facilities so that you can? Because that's a tough thing. I would rather do it while you're in school and be done and graduate. That would have been a lot more fun to graduate and been happy and be done. So find out. And then also you got to think about what national board, or if you're going someplace that's not where you want to be, what states is this going to cover? Because you do not, I mean, and is there guaranteed reciprocity? And even if there is it after 5 years? Is it immediate? Because these laws change. And if you Google my name and dental board and licensure by credentials, you'll see the bill I wrote for a year and lobbied for licensure by credentials, and then later wasn't given, and then later sued the state, and it was all kind of fun stuff. I spent a lot of money on trying to get my license. in another state. And ultimately I said, gave up, moved back to California, worked 10 years, and then started this company, which is kind of a big FU to the specialists in the state I live in. But you know what? Actually, I'm super happy because my husband has the practices and I really don't care. So I love what I do. So it all worked out for me. But you do not want to be dealing with taking another dental board later. So only apply to schools where you realistically can live or want to live, given the licensure that you'll get when you graduate. It'll be a nightmare. People do it, but a lot of people fail too. And it breaks up a lot of marriages. And by then you already kind of have kids or families. And yeah, I'm blessed that things worked out for me, but a lot of people, it doesn't work out for them. So think about that before you apply, because I certainly didn't even think about, oh, California's only a state at the time. Now I think they have 8X, and I can't go anywhere else. Maybe you don't want to be in California. So, think about that. All right, so those are the main things. I mean, if you take all these things into account and now you have ties, there's definitely some other things that you could definitely look at. But ultimately, you're going to get out of dental school with a very limited understanding of everything and very slow skills. That's just how it is. Do not expect to be the level of a dentist. You're going to get your speed up in your first couple of years of working, or if you're a GP and you want to get your speed up without working, you can do a GPR or an AHED. I definitely recommend that. You're going to be a lot happier if you do that and, less stressed out. Or if you're going to go specialist, who cares? The other thing to keep in mind is that some schools do have really strict requirements for procedures have to be completed before you graduate. Ours was really relaxed. I think it was you had to get units of things done. So you might end up doing 100 fillings, 1 crown. Maybe it was 5 crowns, I don't know. But it wasn't hard to find 1 denture, 1 partial, It was just one of everything, and then you had to have so much units of value, or it was called relative value units, which made sense, They didn't want you trading patients, and they wanted continuity of care. So I thought it was fair. I was never stressed out getting the requirements that I had to get, multi-unit root canal, single unit root canal. It wasn't a lot. But there are other schools which are a lot stricter, but you're probably going to see the issue with people not graduating in 4 years. So, I think that's where you're going to see that happening. Don't worry about the facility. You don't want it falling apart. An issue back when I went was also schools closing. There was a lot of dental schools closing for a while. I don't think that's happening now. It's looking more like it's opening. But no one wanted to be at a school that was potentially going to close down. I almost went to Northwestern and it shut down a year later. So thank goodness I didn't do that. That would have been really bad. So I wanted to look at a school that was obviously actively involved in showing, growth that they're building, not that they're closing things down. So yeah, that's my tips. Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks.